Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
All right, what's going on, everyone? It is match day. Canada, Argentina in the Copa. Going to get to a little footy talk today on the program. We'll also talk some Oilers, Panthers, and week 3 in the Canadian Football League. Welcome to the program. Huss here. Dusty's traveling as we speak here to the Peg for that big Bombers-Lions game tomorrow night that we'll be getting into. But thinking, okay, today we've got to talk Oilers. We've got to talk CFL. And we've got to talk Copa America and a little Euro as well. Who better to do that with on this program than our guest coming up in just a moment? Do want to mention to you that, of course, the Lock Shop is always brought to you by Coolbet. And our friends over at Coolbet have cranked out a very, very cool promo for tonight's match. We're going to get into Canada, Argentina a little later on. And you can check this out on the site in the promotions tab. You can check this out on X if you want, but the Canada Copa America Golapalooza. If you want to ride with Canada tonight, they're a big, big underdog. But how does this sound? If you place a $25 bet on Canada to win, I think they're about 10-1, you'll get a $5 bonus back for every single goal scored in their match. So get on over to Coolbet, hit that promotions tab, and dive in to Canada. Have the faith, and listen, even if they don't win the match, every time a goal is scored, you'll get $5 back as a bonus to use at Coolbet. All right, without further ado, for the first time, I believe in Lock Shop history, I've certainly had him on WST. You know him as the brains of the operation in the morning, but a CFL and footy aficionado, exactly the man we need for the job today. Let's welcome in the legend himself, LTE, Lieutenant Eric. E, what is going on? It is great to see you, buddy.
I'm crying here. That's really kind of you. Did Remus put you up to this? I know my relationship with old MR is burgeoning, but I thank you for that lead-in. I was a little tentative because as I texted with you, I'm not a bettor by definition. I like kind of watching people do it. I like watching the off track and all of that. But in terms of this program that you and Dusty certainly do each and every day, and very good at it, mind you, with the winning and people following you to the bank, I was a little, how's this going to go? But you bringing me into these waters, this was a really nice trip through the shallow end, and we'll be into the deep here by the end of the hour. Thank you so much, Huss. It's good to be on with you.
The beautiful thing, I mean, especially in the Lock Shop, when we kind of get into times like this when we've got let's just say 2 hockey games left this season. We'll touch on that in a minute. And obviously, I mean, you're a huge CFL guy, so I'm really looking forward to your thoughts on the league and where we're at so far. But honestly, I love getting into these big international tournaments, but I mean, it's not an area of expertise for me. I kind of become soccer guy for a month or 2 a year when these things are going on. So someone like you that lives the game 12 months a year, follows club teams, certainly has been following Canada and knows a lot about Argentina, this is a perfect time to get some insight and have a little fun. By the way, speaking of fun, shout out to the gang that's with us right now over at YouTube. We always have a great crew. And people are saying, oh, where's Maddie? Guess where Maddie is? Maddie is right now in Atlanta, getting ready to make things happen and be at the game tonight. So I'm fired up. I'm happy for Matt. I mean, you've been around him for the last number of weeks. I mean, I went out for beers with him when I was in Edmonton at the beginning of the hockey season when the Jets and Oilers played back in October, and he was talking about this.
Oh yeah.
This is bucket list stuff for Matt. And honestly, I've got friends that are there too. For Canada Soccer, just to be on this stage tonight in the first matchup, Eric, of the Copa America. I mean, very, very cool for the profile of our national team, and what an experience for these players that are going to be under the bright lights in a sold-out Mercedes-Benz stadium.
Yeah, 80,000 or something along those lines expected. Obviously, you mentioned Argentina. I mean, world number one, Messi, World Cup, all that. But to touch on the Canadiana point, Maddie, and this goes back to the Azteca games that Canada had to play to qualify for last World Cup, in which I think, this is a sport that's not everyone's cup of tea, but once you experience something like those qualifiers that we had here at Commonwealth, I think it drew a lot of people in, and certainly it gave Maddie specifically a lot more excitement. And hey, the Voyagers came out. We got our first taste of that supporters group, obviously the supporters group that follows Canadian soccer, both the men's and the women's. But yeah, Larry Zima's down there, one of our nasties and part of the Voyagers, tweeting out outside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. You can follow him at LZ401, but he's waiting for Iwanek. I know Iwanek. And as you mentioned, he's been talking about this trip for. I'm glad he went on it, because now he can shut up talking about it. It's been one of those. It's those frustrating things, I'd like to be there too. Unfortunately, you can't all go, but it should be a wild time tonight. In terms of just how it's going to go. Look, world number one, it's a tough one, but you get this game out of the way in a tournament where. If you can keep the goal differential pretty tight, who's to say what happens? But I'm pretty bullish on Canada. They made a manager change. Jesse Marsh leading the way now. I think that was a pretty astute appointment given the options they had. And I mean, it's so funny too with the Oilers extending this cup run and this cup chase, overlapping now with these two tournaments that are just, I mean, you give me a summer of the Euros, that's good enough. Now with the Copa America starting and Canada part of that, and then on top of a cup finals when your team is in it. There's no sleep, baby. The liver doesn't take a day off here.
All right, we'll get to the soccer at the end of the program and just kind of touch on, what we're looking at as far as how big of an underdog Canada is, and we'll pick Eric's brain on the rest of the tourney as well. And I'm looking forward to diving right into the CFL. I've got Dusty's picks. We're going to make our picks. We're going to put together a little partner parlay for the games that we agreed on this week. But LTE, how was the show this morning? Just for those of us that are not in the Edmonton market right now, give us a little taste of the vibe around E-Town as the Oilers have pulled a full undertaker, gotten off the mat right now, and have all the momentum going into Game 6 tomorrow night at Rogers Arena.
These days, they suck because I want a game and a day off and a game. This 2-day thing where you don't know what to do with yourself. And as you mentioned, though, the soccer and the CFL is good to kind of have here. But the waiting is the hardest part, really. Oiler fans will wait, obviously, instead of being out 4 games to none in this series. But no, I mean, it's percolating and the pendulum swings, as you know, Huss, in a Canadian market. They were done and buried in the Canucks series. They were done and buried in the Stars series, and they were done and buried in this series. And that's that's just the way the Oilers like it, right? Backs against the wall, and we've heard that. So the anticipation mounts. The schedule's set up real nice too. All these games have been on like a weekend here or there. So I mean, Friday weather's turning up as well. I do believe it's mid to low 20s tomorrow sun. Like it's going to be something. So everything else going on plus that. It's funny though. Today you mentioned Dusty gone as well, covering the CFL. Maddie down in Atlanta. Bit of a skeleton staff. I'm a little under the weather, doing my flu game today, as it were, and big traffic delays on the Henday. So we had a few people not being able to. It was all over the map today, Huss. It's been a day, but a fun day.
Who was in with you on the morning show?
Jay Milne, Glue Guy, and YouTube Trev behind the monitors.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
By the way, every time you just mention YouTube Trev, if the Oilers win the cup, he will be able to make a steady living with a side gig of a Stuart Skinner lookalike impersonator. It blows me away. When he had Lestache, and I haven't seen him lately because he's often been behind, I mean, it is dead ringer. Like, it's eerie how much he looks like Stuart
Well, and he's got to
Skinner.
keep it, because I think he'd agree, too, that a clean-shaven YTT maybe isn't, shall we say, going out and playing the field, that type of thing. So I don't mind him with a bit of a scruff. Now, this is getting a little out of hand, but we'll take it. So, yeah, no, he's been around. And look, Beard's superstitions and whatnot. I mean, at this stage of the game, Huss, like my wife wants her friend to come over and watch the game, but they're too chicken to break up their own. One won't go over there, the other won't go over there. So they're not even going to enjoy this for themselves due to the superstition. It's a standoff. And for YouTube, Trev, I mean, the guy never really takes a day off. I think we've all agreed that if and when the Oilers get this over the line, he's getting a full month. He should get an off season like the players to go out and do the victory tour, that type of thing.
Well, of course, yeah, because he's hanging with Handsome Tommy wherever he takes his show on the road too. And
yeah.
But hey, these are good problems to have, fellas. Yep. There are 30 other markets and every other Canadian market that would love to be stretched out and having to do double duty and banging out shows at midnight because your team's still alive. And the Oilers
even those two deals that went down yesterday. Normal time, we're on the other side of the fence and we're like, oh yes, some red meat here. I don't want the deals. We got the Cup final to still talk about. So it's funny having that tone and that subject matter to discuss outside of deals happening. Yeah, whatever. Get us to the Cup finals, 6-7.
While we're just on this, before we move on to the 3-down game, I can tell you, gang, if you were thinking, well, we have had no line movement from yesterday. The Panthers are still plus 103 for Game 6. The Oilers are still minus 121. And the series price, if you think the Oilers can go back-to-back and finish this miracle comeback, if you didn't get on them at 10-1 after they were down 3-0 or 7-1 after they were down 3-1, they are plus 275 to raise the trophy right now. They do have series result. Listen, Florida to win this series in Game 6, plus 103, as we mentioned. Florida to win at home in Game 7, plus 200. And then the Oilers winning 4-3 plus 275. So that's all up there at Coolbet right now. But LTE, let's get over to the Canadian Football League for a minute. And I should have warned myself about this conversation because it has been a long time where someone in Winnipeg has had to talk about a winless team and look all the way up. And the Saskatchewan Roughriders are first place in the CFL and in the Western Division. You got to be pretty fired up about the green and white.
I was going to ask what the temperature is in Winnipeg lately. Hey, Winnipeg, with the L. Can finally use it, man. I've been holding that in the holster, but
we're clipping this one. Remus, I hope Remus is watching this. We may have to clip this right around Labor Day or Banjo Bowl. But in all seriousness, man, what a start for the Riders. And listen, you got a new head coach. You get your quarterback back. I think there was optimism that this team would be better and would at least, get past the embarrassing finishes to the past 2 seasons, losing their last 7 games in back-to-back years. But, man, what a start. They're showing a lot of fight. They're showing a lot of confidence, too, even when down, that they can come back in. And, listen, they did get a gift from Tim White to win that game. But the bottom line was they came back from down 10 late in the game and put them in a position to actually win. And no surprise, they're favorites again against Hamilton in this game that we'll get to at the end. But just overall, Oiler vibes are high, Rider vibes are high. Things must be very pleasant around the LTE household these days.
Oh, we're laughing, baby. This is all good cream. And I just think the CFL as a whole, Huss, through the 2 weeks, and it's the problem with this league is if a quarterback or two do go down at some point, you multiply that by an NFL standard or whatever. I mean, that's huge in a 9-team league, but thus far the play has been exceptional throughout, aside from a Zach Claros, who I did pick as my quarterback in our Dunya 4-man fantasy, which I'm just kicking myself for.
Be patient.
And I will, but and then long season to go. But the Riders, I mean, look, snatching victory out of the hands of the feet, and the Elks, on the other hand, I mean, they could easily be 2-0, I think, as well, if you took away a moment here or there or a mistake here and there. So it's funny. I think Mace has brought a vibe the past couple of years. I mean, I haven't even driven to games. Dickinson was a bit of a lame duck last year. They didn't really move from that. But Mace, again, early days, but it's just you feel You feel an aura, you feel something, and you feel like even if you're behind, you're winning games. And it's funny that the Elks kind of have that opposite where things can be going good. I mean, I go to last year too when they were rolling against Winnipeg here at Commonwealth and 20-some points up, and you're like, yeah, how are they going to blow this? And it's that attitude, right? So I think the culture that obviously Mace is developing there, the bar was set pretty low. But right now, 2-0, and what a game against Hamilton. I mean, if you can give me that again on Sunday night, I'll take it. Depending, I don't care how the result goes, but right down to the wire. I'm loving the early season thus far through 2 weeks. The quarterback play, and all of that, and especially as you mentioned, Winnipeg starting 0-2. That's just for me a cherry on top, Huss.
Let's get to these games. We get going tonight. Out east, Ottawa at Montreal. The line in this game, Montreal's a 6.5 point favorite between two undefeated teams, which I don't think a lot of people maybe had on their card. Credit where credit's due, though. Montreal, who was very average throughout listen, they were 11-7 last year in the regular season. They were 0-7 against Toronto, BC, Winnipeg, and they were 11-0 against everyone else. I mean, they were the true barrier between the haves and the have-nots.
Yep.
But then they got it done in the big game, and they did it in incredible fashion. Cody Fajardo, the hero. It seems, Eric, that Montreal has picked up where they left off. They believe that they are the champions of the Canadian Football League, which they are. And Cody's looked awesome. Their defense is still legit with Noel Thorpe.
Yeah.
And if they're not number one on every power poll around the country, somebody's doing it wrong. Ottawa with Drew Brown up against the Bombers last week. Listen, it was a great start. Bottom line is he did not turn the football over, which had killed Ottawa in the last few seasons. No quarterback group had turned the football over more than Ottawa. This is a big opportunity for Ottawa to go in and show that, they are a significant player in the East right now. Hard to overlook Montreal at home.
Raising the banner.
Home opener as well, raising the banner. But what do you make of this game? And do you think Ottawa has a chance to be in this one in the fourth quarter and keep it close?
Sure. And with the CFL, I think, and again, early days, 1-0. I don't know what the jury is or the so much of the tape on them as of yet. But the Alouettes, just to add what you said, I mean, I think Moss and Fajardo in their time in Regina, it's big market. I mean, that's the attention's on, and every move you make is critiqued. And I think going out to a market like Montreal and the ownership, dawning of a new day there, just allowed to do what they do. And that defense, I mean, the defense is clicking. That Stubblefield injury, that was kind of a weird one too. He twists Strevler's ankle, right? And almost the next play, he's done for the season. That was a weird chain of events there. Just it. I mean, Walter Fletcher, I think, has taken the reins too in that RB1. Reggie White Jr. returning. I mean, they've lost Austin Mack, which was a huge weapon last year. I like what they do. The defense is great. Fajardo's not afraid to get aggressive and push it down the field. And I think when you have those two things combined with a special teams that always seems to find, a stud returner, let one go, bring in another guy. So they're cooking right now. I love what they're doing. In terms of Ottawa, I just think, me personally, I just haven't seen as much yet. I don't know if the offensive weaponry is all there. I know they have a few names. But, I mean, you're a little more familiar with Drew Brown than I am. You mentioned not turning the ball over is key. And, this game, too, I think Montreal-Ottawa, this is a cozy little rivalry that the two have developed given geographical position. Looking forward to this one, but I like the Alouettes to come out of this one a little comfortable, shall we say, especially home opener and raising the banner.
Dusty and I are on opposite sides of this game. I'm just pulling up his picks to make sure I'm not misstating them. But Dusty's going to take the Alouettes minus 6.5. I'm actually taking Ottawa on this one. I think that, much like we're seeing in Saskatchewan, I think that there's some really good vibes in Ottawa right now. And I think that when holding on the way they did, having their defense hold that goal line stand late, does wonders for them. And listen, just getting a win with a new quarterback. I was really impressed with what their defensive line did, and that's going to be key against Montreal. I just think this is a big line, and obviously Montreal is going to be in a big celebratory mood. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there's a little bit of a drop off just after, coming out on the road to the West in those first couple of games. And the other thing, I got to give credit to Tommy Condell. The one thing that really stood out to me, Condell did a great job at putting Drew Brown in a position to get the ball to his impact players in high percentage throws and then let them go and do the work. And I think with a young quarterback that doesn't have a ton of experience, that is really, really important. Listen, the Montreal defense is very good, but I mean, Condell's been in the East for a long time.
Yeah.
He knows exactly what he's going up against. I was very impressed with their game planning in game number 1, and I would expect that to be the same. So I'm hoping for a close game. We're on opposite sides. I'm taking the points with Ottawa. Dusty's on the Alouettes as a 6.5-point favorite. So we're going to keep that one out of the partner parlay. Moving on to this BC Winnipeg game. And like I said, I speak to the Bombers. They did not look prepared at all for the opening game against Montreal, and they basically got what they deserved. What was really unfortunate, they were already missing Adam Bighill. Brady Oliveira had been sort of in and out during the preseason. And so many of their starters never even saw the field. And it seemed like they were rusty. And Mike O'Shea themselves said, uncharacteristically, it was on me. I didn't have them prepared to play. Okay, fine. They go to Ottawa. And what's really significant is that they lose Justin Haba, Miles Fox, and ended up with 4 defensive linemen playing every snap. And if you think back to these last few seasons, the Bombers have had such great depth on the defensive line that they've been able to rotate guys in and out, keeping them fresh. And that's been a big key to what Winnipeg's done in the past. That's not even an option right now for them.
Yeah. And we've talked every year, too, with this Bombers team. Another year goes by, another age clicks on a lot of these guys. And if you can't keep them fresh.
Father Time is undefeated. And listen, Willie J still looks amazing. I mean, he's still one of the top players in the league. But Jackson Jeffcoat's not there anymore. And there's some new faces and young guys, great athletes, but a lot on their plate. Although I'll say this, the defense for Winnipeg was impressive against Ottawa. They made some big stops in the second half to keep them in that football game, to give them the chance to win, which they absolutely had. It was just the offense that didn't get it done, much to the chagrin of you and other Zach Calero's fantasy owners.
I have Dembski as well, just to kind of throw that in there.
He had a big one.
Yeah, Carrick Wheatfall, you rate him here? I mean, he's announcing himself quite nice here. 3 grabs, 111.
He had a huge one that probably should have been a touchdown. He was so busy
70.
looking at the guy that was chasing him. He didn't see the guy that was coming in from the side. They ended up getting it in. But, I mean, yeah, he has shown that he can certainly be a guy, and I'm sure he'll get quite a bit of attention as long as Kenny Lawler is out.
Yeah.
Dalton Schoen didn't practice at the beginning of the week. He's in. And we just found out that Brady Oliveira will be active for this game and as a game-time decision, although he's listed below Johnny Augustine on the depth chart. So for you fantasy players and DFS guys, take that into note. What's amazing to me, Eric, is based on what we've seen so far this season with the Bombers and how banged up they are, is that they're still favored to beat the BC Lions in this game right now. And, I talked about it with Dusty a little earlier. It was 1.5. I said, listen, if you want to bet BC, do it right now, because this will be closer to a pick 'em by the time we get to the game. Well, that hasn't happened yet. The Bombers are actually 2-point favorites right now, but just assume this game is a straight up pick 'em. You're just thinking about who's going to win this game. What do you make of BC? Like, listen, traveling to a tough place to play historically. Here's a stat, by the way. Going into this season in the Bombers home opener, they were 37-3 at home in their last 40 games. Well, they're 37-4 now. And one of those 3 losses, if you recall, was BC handing them their asses early last season. Now, to their credit, they ended up running 8 in a row after that and finishing 8-1 at home. But, I mean, BC has played this team very, very tough. They were so close last year, and it came down to an incredible third game that decided home field, which really was impactful in the end with the Bombers getting to the Grey Cup. Yeah. But I'll be straight. I'm surprised that the Bombers are favored in this game. I think that, I mean, if you look at where these teams are at, the way BC played last week against Calgary, they're hosting the Grey Cup. They've got a target on the Bombers right from the start of the season. And the fact that Winnipeg hasn't looked good and as banged up as that they are, I mean, as much as I would love to sit here and say I have full confidence the Bombers get it done, and listen, even if they lose at 0-3, it's a long season.
Yeah.
They'll be a factor at some point this year later on. But I don't know. I'm really surprised that the Bombers are favorite. I think that's more a reputation call than anything. And to me, the Bombers are staring 0-3 in the face right now if BC comes in and plays the way that they can.
And BC to me sometimes is a little Jekyll and Hyde. I just sometimes I don't know what to make of them. And Vernon Adams, if he's on, he's on. If he's on, not, he's not. You feel a bit of a Princess Auto push for the Bombers here, a little home cooking. Maybe that's what it is. I mean, that record still, as you mentioned, albeit a bit of a blemish, but outstanding. I mean, that's not something that you looked at continuing. BC's a tough opponent, but you look for them to correct it at some point. So maybe it's just the fact that, Princess Auto, what is it, the Rum Hut, Rum Jungle or whatever it is, and all that, you throw it in. Yeah. If it's that tight, maybe that's the decider. But BC, I have so much trouble kind of buying fully into what they're doing. And right now, even looking at a 1-1 Lions squad and an 0-2 Bombers squad, I too traditionally lean towards a Winnipeg just because of prior experience here. And again, as I mentioned, BC, sometimes I don't know. It could be there for them to grab, and then they just refuse to do it. So an opportunity for them, obviously, to go in there and really put the Bombers again to 0-3, but I mean, Winnipeg comes out of this one and it's game on again. So perhaps maybe looking at that home field and maybe that's something that sways the idea there. But I don't know, man. I can't. BC's a weird one to me. Whereas even though Winnipeg's 0-2, I still think I kind of know what they are more so, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I mean, that's got to click at some point, you would think.
I like it.
Offensively,
I like the fact that a neutral voice from in between these two teams. Maybe we are a little bit. Listen, the panic button is not out, but the level of concern has cranked up. Yeah. Dusty's on BC +2. I'm going to take the points as well in this game. Maybe the Bombers can win by 1 in a thriller, and that would make us all happy. Now we get to the Elks. And the Elks, if I recall correctly, this game, the Elks were actually 5.5-point favorites yesterday. It's now down to 4.5.
Who?
Listen, I've been, and shout out to the Elks for that beautiful backdoor cover last week. I know they made it close. They at least covered our tickets. I've been really impressed with MBT so far this year. And I think that the Elks, and this is something that teams that just can't get out of their own way at times do. I mean, they were sort of the authors of their own demise in week number 1.
Yep.
And I thought played a really strong game and went toe-to-toe with the champs in week 2. Problem is, they're now traveling across the country to play a really good Argos team that I think a lot of people wrote off because of all the Chad Kelly stuff.
Haven't heard his name. Haven't heard his name at all, hey?
Well, and you know what? We might not hear him. I'm still very dubious that he'll be able to satisfy the criteria that has been demanded of him to be reinstated to the league. The guy's been a screw up and a knucklehead everywhere that he's been his entire life. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve a second chance. I mean, I'm not here to say, listen, it was ridiculous what happened. He's going to lose a lot of money. He's embarrassed the organization. They handled it poorly. But Randy Ambrosie was pretty clear that there's a number of things that he needs to do, and he doesn't have a great track record of doing that. So,
and that was a hell of an opportunity he had. Like, let's be honest. I know you're like giving second jet, but man, how you had it here. I mean, this was it, and you still fumble the ball here. But I think it's great for the league that we're not missing him so much on the field. I mean, again, early days with the Argonauts as well, but I didn't really mind what I saw from Cameron Dukes.
Dukes played really well, and we saw him here in Winnipeg. I mean, that was the one thing that sucked. That they did a great job with the schedule this year. There have been some, Bo Levi going back to Calgary early on, Grey Cup rematch getting going. I mean, we did not get that Grey Cup rematch. The Bombers and Argos only played once last year, and it wasn't until late September. Yeah. And by that time, the Argos had wrapped up the East and didn't even start Chad Kelly. So it was a real buzzkill for what was thought to be the game of the year. But to your point, Dukes was really good in that game. I thought he was great in leading that big comeback down 14 to BC in week 1 and made it happen. I am really intrigued with MBT in particular because he's going back to play against his old team. And he knows that the Elks absolutely need a victory. They need to win at home and kind of give the fans in Edmonton something to believe in and something to get excited about. But it would go a long way to getting that going if they could make something happen on Saturday. Where are you at with the Elks right now? And this challenge for them hitting the road to take on MBT's old team, the Double Blue.
It's fascinating because they could easily be 2-0. They aren't, and that's how it is. That's how the numbers are. But you read into that, it's more palatable. But to the fan base doesn't care, and they need wins, and that's the problem with this season is you're bringing in an MBT, which is good and great, but there's really no room for error. Yeah, you want to see Trey Ford develop. We all want these things, but you got to win yesterday. And what McLeod Bethel Thompson has shown, 300 yards, picking up where he left off with Curly Gittins Jr. I think that relationship seems to have not taken a break at all. He's got a great stable of weapons in terms of receivers and what he's got in the backfield. They're using Javon Leake a little bit more in the offense as well. But it's the picks, man. It's the picks and situational times. And that's why I say the antithesis of the Rough Riders. They just find ways to lose so far this season. Going out there, maybe MBT, a bit of an axe to grind, a point to prove, but you can toss for 500 yards. If you're throwing, a couple of key picks at certain times, It's going to cost you. So man, oh man, I don't know how to grade this team because they'll play a really good game. Everything will be fine, and then it'll just be a moment. So, and in terms of the Argonauts, again, much like kind of the Red Blacks, you get that one game, it's at home, where we kind of feeling them out there, and how are they looking. But I like Dukes. I like the not only the play on the field, but I think when a guy like Chad Kelly is out of the picture here, and the amount of tension and oxygen that he kind of brought in, I think a guy like Dukes, and with this league, another marketable face and attitude and persona that you can kind of use. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know. The Elks, we said too to start the season, a real meat grinder of a schedule. And this, I mean, you had those 2 games at home, and you can say, okay, the Rough Riders, that one game, the way they lost it last year in the home opener, you mentioned the schedule making. Perfect. This is a perfect storyline. Okay, you got them again in your backyard to kick off the season. Let's do this right. And again, late on, they don't. Okay, you drop one. That's fine. You got the defending champions coming in next week. Oh, Lord. Well, this is going to... Lost by 3. Again, a key pick. So you're looking at these 2 games against, tough opponents, a rival and a Grey Cup champ. You lose by a combined score of 11 points. But then you got to go on the road for 2. And guess who they are? Toronto and BC, which, I mean, no easy games in this league, you can argue, but 2 real good teams in their own. You then get a bye before you come back home and host the Red Blacks. So you're staring down the barrel of, potentially 0-4. You don't want to say that or mutter it. But right now, if they keep shooting themselves in the foot, that's how it's going to go. And they can look as good as they want stylistically. I mean, I got Curly Gittins Jr. on my junior squad, putting up some good numbers, and I like the relationship there. Kevin Brown can still run the ball, great back, and if you got Leak, spelling him off. But all that stuff really doesn't matter if you're going to turn the ball over in a couple of key moments. And even Lucas Purifoy returning from injury and dropping a sure one. You take those couple plays back, and I know it's cliche, but that is football in a sense. But they are 0-2, so I'd like to say I like them, Huss, but I just can't for the life of me right now because they're going to find a way to screw it up.
I think they've got enough talent that they're going to surprise one of these teams, and maybe it's Montreal, maybe it's Toronto in this game. And I think you'll see a very, very motivated MBT to get. Now, whether they can get a win or not, I'm not sure, but I do think they're good enough to keep this one close.
Sure.
Dusty and I are both on the Elks plus the points. And I guess right now with the line movement, it was 5.5. It's 4.5. That's not changing the way I'm thinking of this one. So we'll keep them in. One final game, and it's a rematch of last week. Ticats and Riders. Listen, I thought Bo Levi was really good for the majority of the game, but I thought that Trevor Harris was nails when the Riders needed it, leading them back to a win. And it's funny, this game opened at 3.5. It quickly went to 2.5, and it stayed there. I was a little surprised at that. I do like Saskatchewan. I think that they will be in front of an energized crowd, and I think they'll feed off that. Riders by 3, I'm not worried about that one at all. I think of this entire week, that's probably my favorite pick as it is. And as much as I'm holding my nose saying it, I think we're going to be talking about a 3-0 Rider team next week.
Hey, that's the CFL, baby. It's funny how things kind of change on the flip. Hamilton too, though. I mean, you could argue, week one against Calgary, and even last week, I mean, he goes right down to the wire. And I thought Bo and Trevor, I mean, how they combined for like 5,000 yards through the air, for crying out loud. What an entertaining game, even for the neutral there. And you're right. I mean, they'll be fired up in Regina, starting off 2-0 on the road and coming home. Can't get any better than that. A few injuries on the receiving side for the Riders. I think they kind of do things largely there by committee, so they'll plug and play there. AJ Ouellette wasn't practicing, I don't believe, this morning. I know the run game's been a little suspect, but you mentioned it's the quarterbacks, and they'll go as far. We saw last year too, and prior to the Harris injury, I mean, the Riders were winning games maybe they shouldn't have been in, but they were finding ways to win, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day. He goes down, and everything goes to crap, and I think you could argue for most CFL teams that you take away your star. I mean, Ticats as well, and I think they have a very interesting guy behind Bo in Powell, but if Bo can stay healthy too, why not? Sky's the limit. It's just, I find it a little funny that Tim White, and for all the offseason and wanting the bag and all of this, he is the one to kind of cough that one up. I find that a little funny in the poetry.
You could say that Tim White has basically cost them their first two games. He had brutal drops in the Calgary game.
Those receivers make those catches, in that Stamps game, things are totally different.
Well, that's the thing. And then obviously serving up that little nice volleyball set for the Rider DB, and that was curtains. It's been tough. You expect that he'll bounce back with a great game, but I do think that the Riders get this done. So Dusty and I are both on Saskatchewan as well in the next. So this is what we're looking at for the partner parlay. We are looking at the BC Lions, and we'll get it to +2.5 because we're not going to have it on an even number. The Elks +4.5 and the Riders -2.5. I've just sent that over. That'll be in the exclusives. And the good thing is we're not picking tonight's game, so you'll have right up until tomorrow's action to get on that. Hey, Eric, we're going to quickly touch on Canada and Argentina, but I know we should fire out that keyword today for the EST hole-in-one. Do you have that info?
Let's do it here. We will, I just want to make sure I'm, okay, here we are. The keyword today for the $100,000 swing to win, and once again, that's going down at the Ranch Golf and Country Club as Zach enters the room. Hello, Zach. Good to see you again, my man. Top-notch work this morning, as always. But the $100,000 swing to win, once again, Ranch Golf and Country Club, July 3rd. 180 yards, 17th hole, $100,000, your chance. So the key word for today will be Muirfield. Muirfield, however you want to pronounce it, Muirfield, Muirfield, Scotland, correct? I do believe. Muirfield. Text it in, 780-218-9999. Once again, that's 780-218-9999, Paris Jewelers inbox. And you may be the next qualifier contestant in the $100,000 swing to win, brought to you by Golf Town. And going down once again at the Ranch Golf and Country Club. Once again, should a contestant hold it out, the contest will immediately end. All remaining contestants will not be able to take a swing, as that is the fine print provided by one Matthew Iwanek. So once again, it's hole 17, 180 yards at the ranch. We'll be live there July 3rd. And the keyword today to text in to perhaps have a shot of us calling you tomorrow on the Nielsen Show, Muirfield, Muirfield. Am I pronouncing that right? I've heard it said so many times on broadcasts, but now it's one of those words you look at, I'm like, Muirfield. Am I doing it right?
I think you're right. Muirfield, I think that's the way we'll roll with it. And yes, of course, British Open coming up, our final major. Good luck to everyone, all of you lock shoppers that have entered in. Oh, and I should mention one other thing just to wrap up our CFL conversations. For those of you lock shoppers in the Winnipeg area, if you're betting on the CFL on Coolbet this weekend, don't forget you can pick any game every weekend. You've got one game where you can select a 20% win bonus. Just click on it when you're making your bet. The other thing is, if you're betting $10 on any CFL game, or say you're putting 5 on a couple, take a screen cap of your bet, email it to contest@winnipegsportstalk.com. Shout out to Mark Mfanasuk, who's a regular lock shopper, was one of our first qualifiers. We'll keep on picking qualifiers throughout the next month and a half. And then second week in August, everyone that qualifies will get a marble. We'll do a special marble race, and the winner will be coming with me on the Husk bus to Regina for the Labor Day Classic. Transport to and from Winnipeg to Regina, 2 nights hotel, tickets to the game, some Coolbet swag, some swag from the tour, all presented by our friends at Coolbet. So again, contest at winnipegsportstalk.com to get in that if you're in the Winnipeg area. Let's quickly get to Canada, Argentina. And listen, Argentina won the World Cup.
Yeah.
They've got the greatest player of all time. Canada is a rebuilding nation with a brand new head coach. That is why they are more than 10-1 underdogs in this game tonight. A draw plus 475. But big picture, what an opportunity for Canada and these players to play on a stage that they hope they can be on a little more frequently moving forward into 2026 when they will be one of the host nations for the World Cup.
It's a hell of a tune-up, and I think coming off the last World Cup, there were a lot of tough lessons learned. Obviously, John Herdman took this group as far as he could arguably take them, and it's probably the right time for a change. You enter Jesse Marsch, the American, whom USA Soccer really wanted, but they're a bit of a mess right now. This Canadian team, it's weird because much like the Euros right now and what the Copa Americas will be, there is always a great mix of youth in these tournaments looking to break through the wall and kind of develop a reputation for themselves. So for Canada, you've got a lot of, the familiar faces. I mean, Davies named captain out of the gate. Good. You've solidified that. Jonathan David's taken the penalties. If there are any, good. You solidified that. A lot of things that are kind of, okay, this is where you should be. This is what you're doing, which I think the last World Cup, you're happy to be there, and we didn't know what we were doing with ourselves. So I think this team, led by Marsch, I'm really excited to see how they move forward. Obviously, you're getting the best team in the world game one, which you can chalk it up either way. You get this one out of the way, or maybe there's a bit of a fairy tale and a Cinderella story here. I think important tonight, though, is keeping this close. You don't want in a group stage tournament such as this, you don't want to be out of it first game. Even if you take the L, keep this one close. But, of course, Argentina, yeah, Messi, but a lot of good young player, Alejandro Garnacho, Manchester United, Valentin Carboni, 19-year-old. Like, they've got a lot of good mix of experience, but with a lot of exciting youth. It's going to be tough, but I'd just like to see how they stack up against the world's best with. And again, Canada's traditionally, yeah, we don't have a lot of stock in world soccer, and the history kind of mirrors that. But I think right now, with where they're at and bringing in this new coach as Marsch, he's had some time to kind of work in albeit not a long time. But he's been there. He's gotten to know the guys. I think a lot of the Canadian players have had a lot of, especially this past club season, Tejan Buchanan moving to Italy. They've been getting a lot more better quality minutes against better opposition, which will serve them well in this game. But I think tonight, anxious to see what they have. It's on this continent, 80,000. I mean, that Mercedes-Benz, great team there, club team Atlanta United, which they support and love. So it'll be a feverish atmosphere. I'm just excited to see how they go out with, again, not so much the John Herdman, rah, pound your chest, and we're going to F this and F that, but more of a measured approach, more of a tactical approach, and more of using the weapons, knowing what you have, and working within your means as opposed to just kind of going out and trying to smash people in that. So excited for tonight. Not too, bullish in terms of a result for Canada, but if they can keep this thing close and grow into the game and not maybe let Argentina, get one quick and then it kind of gets out of control, but grow into the game, keep things in front of you. I'm very interested, very fascinated, but again, you can't really hold out too much hope of a result here. You just hope they kind of keep it close.
The matches that we need are Peru and Chile.
Yeah.
If we want to move on.
Absolutely.
Those are the games. And I think this will be, to your point, you don't want to lose 6-0 and then, or 6-0, I should say, and then find yourself, in a situation where you're screwed when it comes to any tiebreakers. Listen, if you want to live the dream, plus 1050 on Canada tonight. And again, they've got a special promo for tonight. If you put $25 on Canada, you get a $5 bonus, win or lose, on every goal scored in the game. But what's interesting is we do have some Canada specials that you're going to need to get in on before we get going. As far as top scorer on the team for the tournament, Jonathan David's plus 260, Kyle Laren's 3-1, Fonzie 4-1, and then Junior Hall and Ike Ugbo at 9-1, and it goes down from there. There's a total for Kyle Laren over under 1.5 goals for the tournament, plus 170 for over, minus 250. But the one that I'm on, and this is just sort of a fun way to bet as opposed to betting the team to beat Argentina, stage of elimination, and we make it to the quarterfinal. 4-1 to get out of the group and make it to the quarterfinal. I'm going to jump on that at plus 400. And listen, if you want to get even more aggressive, losing in the advancing from the quarterfinal to the semi, losing in the semis 9-1, second place 25-1, and to win the whole thing 66-1. Wouldn't recommend that, but the fact of the matter is that Peru and Chile no longer. I mean, the powers. I had a great chat with Steven Sandro earlier today for WST, and Double S said, you know, like growing up, we kind of remember the Argentines and the Brazilians being like right there with the top European clubs. This Argentinian team has not really restocked as they traditionally do with a lot of youth. I mean, there's a lot of guys over 30 that are still on this team, but Peru, Chile, those teams aren't maybe as intimidating to a side like Canada as they've been in the past. So regardless of what happens tonight, there's going to be a lot of fun to be had for Canadian soccer fans. And again, shout out to everybody that went out. I know there were some people asking about the game. All the games in Copa America are on TSN. And of course, TSN is broadcasting the Euros as well. And speaking of the Euros, just from today, we've got a 1-1 tie between Slovenia and Serbia in the books. Denmark and England are 1-1. That looks like that's through 90, so they're just going into extra time.
Love to see it.
Just before we go, what a matchup. We talked about this group of death. Spain and Italy going at it this afternoon. Who you got?
That too that's a tough. Give me a draw on that one. I like that. Look, I just want to touch on England as well. 1-1 in stoppage time here against Denmark. That's not going to sit well either. But Spain, Italy, yeah. I mean, I think outside of Germany, through the opening round of games, you could argue Spain, obviously, with the goal differential and what they put up on Croatia 3-0. You can also look at the opponent in that as well. But anytime you open the tournament and you get those goals, right, and that just feeds the confidence going into the next one. In terms of Italy, I didn't get to catch their game, the 2-1 against Albania. Heard it was a cracker. But again, Albania gets one, and winning 2-1 is not like winning 3-0. So maybe the minds there might be a little different, but this is just a classic. This sets up for a classic. You mentioned a bit of group of death action there. This is just for the neutral. You sit back, you put your feet up, and you let them go at it here. But I could also see this one in terms of how it sets up in the group that nobody wants to lose it. So you might go out and be a little cagey and not go out and set up not to lose, as opposed to maybe going there and trying to get the 3 points. But Spain, Italy, I mean, what more could you want to wrap up the day today, 1 o'clock? I'll go with the draw. A 1-1 draw will be my pick for that one. Very brave, I know.
Draw. All right, well, there you go, folks. You want to ride with LTE plus 212 for the draw. The Spanish are plus 135. And Italy plus 265 to win. Just checking out the chat. Spency 5 Sensi's firing with a Calder Cup pick. Hershey and the Coachella Valley Firebirds over 6.5 on Coolbet.
Okay.
All 3 games in that series have gone over. Love it, Spency. And yes, for you fans of the beautiful game, kick back in an hour. We get Spain and Italy for one of the best matchups of the group stage. And then tonight, 6 o'clock in Edmonton, 7 o'clock in the Peg, Canada and Argentina from the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Eric, so much fun having you hang out in the lock shop, buddy. Love that Riverhawks lid.
You got to get me out to I'd like to get a ball game in Winnipeg with you guys. The WST, what is it? The lounge, the wing, or whatever it is.
Yes, well, for sure we get you out here for that, but down to the ballpark downtown. I might be, depending on his schedule, bringing your partner to the ball game tonight. So we will fire out a pick or two of what we're eating, and much like we always do at the game. So we'll do that, and then I think maybe go for a few innings, something to eat, and then sneak over to the King's Head pub with the Voyageurs and catch Canada and Argentina tonight. But,
Send me the pics.
Listen,
Send me the pics. It sounds like a tidy night.
Absolutely. It'll be great. Lock shoppers, good luck with any plays you've got for tonight. Enjoy the games. Tomorrow we'll be back all over game 6 of the Stanley Cup final with your Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. And, of course, the rest of the action coming up this weekend. And, of course, we'll talk about what's happening tonight between Canada and Argentina. LTE, thanks very much. We'll turn it back over to Zacticum at ESTHQ. And for those of you in our area that want to hang out with us in Winnipeg, Sports Talk WST Daily begins in about 5 minutes. Craig Button's coming on, Billick, Rowicki, and we will talk a bit more on the game tonight with Steven Sandor as well. So, Eric, have a good one. Lock Choppers, we'll see you Friday. Check out that promotions tab at Coolbet for more information on that Canada special for tonight's tilt. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.
Am I still on? Like, is this? Do I do another show for 5 minutes? All right, it's the LTE Spectacular. We'll wrap it up here. Once again, Gage still in studio here. He was on the Hangout. He's getting ready to go, liquefying himself as he normally does here around ESTHQ. And Tom Gazzola will be in as well for another 2 guys and a goalie. So that's coming up in a matter of minutes. But thanks everyone for listening. It's been a hell of a day here at EST. We're having a good one. This is summer, but not officially yet, as we are entering the solstice. Of course, a lot going on the pitch, on the field tonight as CFL Week 3 kicks off from Montreal. It'll be the Grey Cup banner-raising night for the Alouettes as they host a hated geographic rival in the Ottawa Red Blacks. Your next chance at qualifying for the $100,000 swing to win. That's coming up as well with 2 guys and a goalie shortly. I know Zacticum is here. You stick around for this one too. Do you do that show? Does he? I'm usually gone by that. I don't even know what's happening here at this stage of the game. But thanks so much everybody for texting in, and the nasty chat was great as well. I love the likes, hitting the likes during the lock shop. Love that. Love to see it. So whatever you're doing tonight, again, this game this afternoon, Spain, Italy, should be a cracker. It's going to be good. Even if you don't like soccer, maybe head out to a bar if you got some time, pull up to the Wood and enjoy yourself. And of course, that's the appetizer to the main event tonight. Canada, Argentina will play a little I Spy for Matthew Iwanek. He'll be our Where's Waldo in the crowd in the Sea of Red Voyagers down at Mercedes-Benz Stadium tonight, Atlanta, Georgia way. But come on, Canada, let's go, you Reds. And we'll be rooting them on tonight as well. Of course, CFL Week 3 as mentioned, and then we'll be back tomorrow. Myself, Walking Gage on the Nielsen Show, and YouTube Trev. Can I go now? Are we good? Okay. We're going to sign off here. Have a good rest of the afternoon. 2 guys coming up. Your next chance at the keyword for the $100,000 swing to win at the Ranch, courtesy Golf Town, coming up next. Have a great afternoon. I love you.